Hi there.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah, I was in the spin, the death spiral for a little bit there.
I don't know
How
if
you
it's
doing?
really, really popular time for Zoom, and that's why. So not quite sure.
Yes. Hey, congratulations. That's
Hey,
fantastic. I got
you
my
got a book?
book. Oh my goodness, and it is something that exactly as it says is to just you can go through it, no any direction, right?
Yeah,
Really
it
nice.
was it's amazing how it came together, so in 4 months. It's like you talk about herding cats. It was something else. And if
I
you
bet.
notice, yeah, the piece that I wrote, I co-wrote that with Michael as well. So that was obviously there's pros and cons. Pros obviously having Michael, two insights to build that was good. But we
Yeah,
did run into a situation like, okay, we'd have difference of opinion of what we should be saying. And we had to seek the advice actually of the editors who suggested, okay, one of you guys has to be the lead writer and the other person to support. So we quickly agreed that, okay, I'll be the lead writer. Michael can support what I'm writing there. And because Michael's major concern was Dave has not seen this. And of course, he's got to be 100% sure that whatever we put in our piece, Dave is going to go like, yeah, as opposed to what the hell? So
well, yeah, because you're in such like I say, different levels of granularity, so it's hard for him to
yeah, so
to see it all. I'm sure.
and we quickly moved into Google Docs. And it was my really first time at using Google Docs for collaboration.
Yeah,
And I am really sold on it. Like I will never go back to using Word or whatever and kind of
yeah,
go through that. Google Docs is so good, for putting comments in. You can highlight, you can put edits in, you can suggest, you can resolve, and you can go back.
exactly. Yeah,
You can
and
go back.
everything gets retained in there. I love how the history can be in there, or you can decide to, yep, we're good. Let's let that go. It's
Yeah, yeah. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think this book would have been written. So we quickly all gravitated to it. I know that I found out afterwards, there were some authors that wrote that never made the book as well. So there's some thoughts, I was talking to Dave about that. There's actually a book number 2 that we could do, which would be more for the academics. Most
yep,
of the stuff that we've got, if you look at it, we're practitioners. And
yes,
there's some academic stuff there that the editors just kind of thought, no, this would not go over well. But there is a book 2 maybe,
yeah.
and that's fine. And I would not be part of that academic book. That's not.
Yeah, and that makes sense, carving it out separately like that. Otherwise, it just, you know, you can't follow it, right? You got to have an audience as well that you're speaking to together. So hearing from that practitioner perspective is united on that front.
Yeah,
And then,
and we were all limited to like 3,000 words plus or minus 1 or 2. And that became
pretty tough, eh?
oh,
Yeah,
you go through your first write and you've got, we got 5,000 words here. Where are we going to
yeah.
cut it down? So then we cut it
Now,
down.
did you guys also consider like, that I like how it links to other ones, right? Because were you able to scaffold from other ones as well?
We
So
did
what
have,
things were
we did
getting
not
repeated?
see each other's work. We were paired up with somebody else to do a soft review, but we had no idea like what other people were writing in there. That was up to the editors to make those links, not us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So we ended up doing a soft review of the one that Steve McCrone and Ian Snapes did on strategy.
Yep.
And that was about the only connection we had with each other's stuff, and we actually gave them more input than they gave us. So most of the input we got wasn't on content, but it was on word proofing, whatever, which I thought was really good. Because I have a way of probably being too succinct and too, like make my point and get over with quickly. While Michael is of the other extreme where he likes to put in longer paragraphs and everything else here. And it took Baldwin, the editor, and just kind of say, no, let's just say that. And it was great because then Michael had to go like, okay, right? So we didn't have to kind of like bun toss. We could go like, thank you, Bowden. You cut through you got what we wanted. So we got down to like 3,000 words. And I think we were one of the first ones finished. So maybe we did set an example for others to, well, here's Gary and Michael, they've got theirs. So again.
It would have been interesting to be journaling the experience of everybody as well through the submergence. Yeah.
We were on we had our own Slack channel, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which of course Dave was not part of, but Dave was cool. Dave kind of had, like feelings that something was going on, but he kind of played like, oh, I guess I'll play dumb. But he knew, but he didn't know exactly what was coming on. So it was really a truly surprise. And we actually had.
That is so cool. So it's like really is a celebration. Happy birthday, right?
Yeah. It was Dave, Michael and I were on this call at 4:30 in the morning, a Saturday morning for us. And it was Peter Stanwich. Now, Peter and Dave lived quite close together. In fact, Peter's wife, Julia, is the accountant for Cognitive Edge. So that's how tight.
Okay.
So Peter had to somehow get Dave get him back home for this kind of like surprise meeting. So we clicked on here and there were, I think there's of the 46 authors, I think there are at least like 30 of us are on there. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good showing on that one there. And it's all kind of like surprise sort of thing.
How fun is that?
Yeah, it was kind of neat, to have that. So and you could see, Dave was Dave, but he was truly, truly surprised and tickled, that we had done this because of course it was about, well, this book is going to come out soon, really soon now. But It was really Jen said, like, my God, we're in 21 years since the birth of Kinevin. We had to celebrate this thing somehow. And that's how it all kind of started. It was just out of Jen talking to Sonia, and the next thing got us involved, and we were all on board, and away we went. So
great. And it's got to be nice to see the level of that the coherence is there, right? To give it an indication of, yeah, look, things are moving forward, and I think that's what's cool about it. But also look at how many few years, there's been a lot of hard work about nurturing those interactions, a lot, right?
Well, there's a couple of things, that has really built the network. Obviously, the book has been one piece, but I'm happy now that you're on the Haunt, so you are a member now because you can see the stuff that's coming on there now. Elmy is doing a fabulous job in trying to put all that content on there. So that is our kind of like our resource now. The idea of we were playing with this idea of a Kinevin wiki some time ago, and that never really got off the ground. So now we're putting more content in there, and this is actually our second platform. The first platform we had didn't work very well. So it looks like we settled on the Haunt and the platform there. Yeah, there's lots of strengths, there's some weaknesses as well. But this is, you evolve, right? And this is it here.
Sure you do. And what's the difference, like I said, what is the difference between the network on the website and then our Haunt? I mean, I wasn't clear about that. Should we be on both, one or the other?
The website is available to anybody, whether you're a member or not. So you are not privileged to some of the videos that go on. you don't get the discounts if you do take the training. And
Right.
also it's an opportunity for practitioners like myself to throw stuff up there. We're kind of going, okay, um, a
Yeah.
good example that I recently asked Elmi to open up a new application area called project management. I got it open up safety some time ago, and I'm just kind of throwing things in there. And I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know, you
Exactly.
throw things
Yeah.
in there, you don't know who's going to respond, but you know that at least the people who are responding are going to be cognitive eds practitioners. So I
Right.
don't have really that avenue to do that on the website. Yeah, I've done a couple of blogs here, but you don't know what
Right.
you get there. You're also going to get trolls, you're going to get hackers and everything else on there.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
get that
Exactly.
in the hunt, right? So it is kind of somewhat restricted. It's not, it's, I don't want to say it's
Okay.
closed, it's a network, but it's a coherent network of
Yeah.
people that are going to be friendly and curious. And they're not going to fire bullets
Right.
at you, right? So that makes a big difference.
No.
So
Okay.
yeah, so psychological safety is in the hunt.
Yes. Yes. That's cool.
So
Yeah.
so even your thing about you respond to Dave's blog about,
Yeah.
oh, you thought about that. Dave goes back and Dave is curious, right?
Yeah.
So to me, you've done the smart thing. Move that into the hunt.
Well,
Don't
exactly.
yeah,
Because I don't want to elaborate and start sharing stuff. And that's the thing about, but how do we comment on Dave's blog? I guess I'd love to see a blog area always also in the haunt. I don't know if there is, where we can actually, backdoor the conversations a bit.
everybody does. You can. I mean, if you want to,
Okay, I'll have to have a look for that, because that's maybe where I should be watching a bit more, right?
I mean,
Because
there's lots of folks that are doing that. One guy that just blows me away is Greg Spencer. I only met Greg just recently, but Greg is kind of like, he's kind of entering into that academic space of affordance and all these other words here. And my head is spinning. He's into
yeah,
biosemantics. And I'm going like, okay, let me bookmark that. Okay, if I ever come across that word,
what
I'll
the heck? Yes.
Greg, what are you guys going? But I mean, he's involved in, I guess, webinars or calls on this stuff here. Like, okay, I mean, just be aware of that, but it's not in my space. At
Yeah.
the point, I mean, it's not one I'm interested in pursuing. But if somebody were asking me, go like, what are you doing in this semiotics? I'm going like, I'm smart enough as an expert to know what I don't know, and that's what I don't know. But I do know something that does. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Those
Exactly.
those connections are there,
Yeah.
and is part of the hunt because he can start putting a lot of stuff there. We actually when we did the virtual Kinevin retreat at the end of September, sorry, end of October. Greg, that's where I first met Greg, and we opened up again another Slack for that. I'm getting to the point where I need a Slack to manage the Slacks I got, right?
Yeah, you do.
So it has been there. I once in a while will say something in there, but not a lot. Greg just piles a lot of stuff in there, and I'm just saying, this is good. This is good in some respects because I will track this stuff. But is he better off putting that in the hunt because it's got more traction in the hunt? Because not everybody has access to the Kinevin virtual retreat Slack like yourself.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
seeing an audience, because maybe you know something about biosemiotics or interest in that, and you'd want to start up a conversation with them. Well,
Right.
unless it's through me, there you go. Now you know about biosemiotics. You wouldn't know about
Like,
that. So this is why I'm trying to kind of like build, kind of one of the guys that are trying to build the hunt up to this space. So I threw a lot of content in there and just interested to see who's going to salute that stuff.
yeah,
Because you don't know who's out there. And another good example is that Rosanna Hunt. Rosanna is she works for the National healthcare society, so NHS for UK, and of course Cognitive Edge has done a lot of work in UK in healthcare UK. So Rosanna's up there, and she is a sense maker practitioner. So she's put up some stuff there, and I didn't know about that, but she says, "Oh, is anybody doing X? Y? What you doing?" So I just said to her, "Hi, Rosanna, yada yada. I think you should go on to the virtual quick start." And she goes, "Oh wow, that's great." So now we have this connection. Make a long story short, I'm now going to be part of her SenseMaker meetup group in NHS because I inspired her to create one.
Yeah, there you go.
Like all this fireworks is going off, Janice, right? Because we had this
You know what? I remember, like, do you remember when we had that conversation about you? Yeah, you didn't know if you'd go to the Whistler retreat, and and then why don't you, Gary? What do you get? Yeah, why don't I? And then,
no kidding.
and then it's kind of like snowballed from there. You got
Like so. So this morning, I'm on LinkedIn now because I've connected with this fellow Brent Sutton. Brent he's opened up with this podcast thing about practicing learning for learning teams, practices for learning teams. And he's learned about me through some other connections, whether it's Todd Conklin, whatever, I'm not quite sure. Next thing you know is, Gary, you want to be in the broadcast on this learning teams thing. And I'm going, okay, I can, but let's have this quick conversation because there's so many things we can talk about learning teams.
Yes, that's
So,
right. That's the thing, is sorting out what.
So like if you ask me, why are you involved in saying you should be retired? I'm going, yeah, I should have retired 5 years ago. But I keep on running into people like you.
But you're having a ball with it, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, oh, I can retire, but I'm really curious. I can help here. Oh, why not? Right? Next thing you know, boom, I'm off doing learning teams. Boom, I'm off doing leading indicators.
Well, especially during COVID now, right? It's like huge opportunity there for connecting with an audience.
Yeah, in reflection, I think COVID-19 got people to stay at home instead of running around, don't have time to talk, to sit around and start looking at some stuff and going like, well, who is this guy, Gary Wong? Who is this person, Janice Fingler, right? And next thing you know, they're reading stuff here and say, oh, hey, I need to talk to you about this stuff. That's what's happened to me since March. And that's why I've just been on a whole mess of interviews and webinars.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
It's cool. I'm now part of the Safety View with 3 women who you may know.
I saw that. That's exciting.
How did I get involved in this? so now I'm
the diversity card, Gary. No, you're there.
I'm doing one tomorrow with Rob Crete on his book, Safety from Within. So I figured, okay, it's a 1 hour sort of thing every month. And it looks like it's 1 hour, but it's really not 1 hour because there's some bit of research, including reading his book. So I'm going like, hey, if I do this thing, this is the way to get free books. Right? Because obviously the author should send me a free book if he wants me to talk about this book.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. And then it's like, well, I'm just going to probably read his book anyway. So, hey, it forces me to read his book to kind of like, oh, there's some insights in this thing here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of led me into this area here. So you're right. The world isn't shrinking for me. It's getting bigger and bigger, Janice. So now this thing comes up with what you're doing and going like, well, I know this year. I see that Dave is saying, hey, Janice, can I go for it? Because Dave,
and that's what I was hesitating. Okay, yes. And where do I do that? So that's what I was trying to figure out. Where's the best way and how do you have a conversation about it?
Yeah. So Dave, I think, is interested because, of course, his foundings are natural science. And he realizes, I think he really respects that you've got a geoscientist background. So you probably venture into areas that a lot of the social scientists and other folks that he deals with don't see it. And of course, I kind of figured, I think, Janice is, maybe, I don't know. So that's why I'm on this call with you. You tell me
Yeah.
your mind to see if there's any.
I think there is big scaffolding potential there, right? And because people are so drawn to geology and, you know, from kids to adults, we're so curious about the earth and the earth processes. I think, yes, also the, you know, there's a lot of the metaphors have been more on the biology side, right? And that, but there's a huge opportunity I've always felt on the geology side, right? So.
I think, yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I think, I mean, I go back to our disrupt mining sort of stuff and how we
Yeah.
connected,
Yeah.
rocks with, distributed ethnography. I mean, like, I don't know if
I
anybody.
know that kind of metaphor might resonate more with the layperson. Rather, sometimes you go oblique a little bit further away, right? And
I mean,
you never know.
well, this is it. You throw these things up there, and you, like I said, you don't know. You raise the flag. You don't know who's going to salute it or even try to shoot down the flag, right?
Yeah.
Burn the flag. It's today's rhetoric. So, right. So
Yeah.
I think it doesn't hurt to explore. Does it go anywhere?
Yeah.
Who knows? But you never know. There's somebody else out there going like, oh my God, all of a sudden it's connected dots for me. And what do you think about this, Janice? Right? And then away you go. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm open to being educated, learn. What do you
Well,
got in your mind? And show me.
yeah, well, like you say, if you want me to, I'll just share screen a bit here.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn this. I've talked enough, so let me turn over to you. And once you dump what you're saying.
I thought I had it open. Just a second. I don't see it. Just to make sure I've got Plectica open.
So this is Plectica. Is that how you pronounce it?
Plectica, yeah. And this is Derek Cabrera. This software is built. He's very much as well into complexity science and the elements of systems. So he has, what's your email? I'll just share you the actual software as well.
Or just stick in a chat. Stick in a chat. Use the chat screen.
Yeah, okay, just a sec. First, I'm going to share screen.
Yeah. Oh, I see your screen. You're sharing it.
You can see that? Okay, good.
I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go.
So
no, where, yeah, you see, essentially, yeah, this is almost like a beta. He's really evolving it. And he's used essentially the elements of the system elements there. And I was really attracted to it from Glenda's CDE model, in terms of containers, differences, exchanges, and elements. And, and then he also adds perspective as well. So that is like the viewing angle that anybody or the collective might have. So these are kind of like, you can make these cards, which are individual elements, and then you can connect them different ways, right? So what I've essentially done here is I just, instead of showing the Cynefin framework as we're traditionally viewing it, I just put it in focus from a connection focus, right? In terms of what are, the dynamics that, that have been talked about previously. And so I put, starting in on the 3, because what tweaking is what Dave was talking about aporia and confused, and then going back to the main 3 system types, right? So I put in here, like you say, I've got the ordered, complicated, clear, unordered, and the chaotic over there. And then I connected those up with the green line. You can see them, and there's actually a little one over here too. And they're dashed by different weights, weighted differently based on the energy gradients in that 3D cartoon that we see now. Really helpful. So again, and then the directionality that's possible in between them. So that's how I've represented the energy between these transitions.
So
and then
I realize this is a 2D picture.
It is 2D.
Is it,
Yeah, this
I-
one is 2D right now.
should I
Yeah.
be seeing this thing more like a 3D thing with depth?
Well, you'll start to get some idea of it. So this isn't quite a 3D model, but it could be. I'm going to show you with just with the ball. What it would look like. Yeah. So then, like you say, I was thinking about, okay, well, what about in the middle there? Operatic and confused, right? And for me, the aporia, the operatic is, like I say, taking an intentional pause, right? And my analogy is like you go into the backfield when you're playing it when I play sports. Field hockey, it was very intentional to feed the ball back, or even rugby, right? You get it to the fullback, see the space, then you have option. You have options, and in mineral exploration, we use real options a lot, right? Optionality. Yes, you can kick the ball forward, you can run it, you can do all different things from that space, right? When the time is a big factor, when the timing is right. So it's not only directionality, it's time that you get out of moving into that space. Or the disorder, right, or of confused, where you don't know, you're not aware. So the external environment is changing around you, and you're going to be forced barreled into the backfield. You're not going to really know, or you're just somebody's confused. You've seen it in sports as well, where you just see someone running into the backfield and they have no idea. Like there's a fear there, a desperation, right? They're getting away from something rather than going towards.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the direction of the arrows, and I would say, looking at this, it sounds like if you're in that confused space of disorder, the only way out of there is to go into the operatic.
Yeah, but that's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I mean, on Dave's model there, I should
actually arrows in both directions now. I didn't see that until you pulled it open.
Okay. Yeah, and I put them all in both directions to see if that was really possible, because in Dave's model, he doesn't really show that it's possible. And that was my question, going from complex to clear, right? And there was no path. It looked like you had to go all the way around. But is that real or not? I think there are paths, more options there. And it's very hard to convey that in that 2D picture.
Well, let me just answer that one, because if you look at the Beach 3D model, right, their rendition with showing the energy levels with the cliffs and everything else here.
Yep.
Huge, they show clear way up really, really high.
Yeah.
Complex is really, really low. And so the intermediate step is going to complicate it. So it's an adjacent impossible. To go from complex up to clear really means going up like 2 ladders. So yeah, you need that going into complicated first of all, to take that solution, convert it into documentation, into training. That's because it's the documentation, the training that's taken up into the clear, not the solution, right? It's the translation that experts have to do in the complicated.
Right.
Right. So that's why I would not see going complex to clear. It's just too much of an energy difference.
Yeah, but I think you can go through aporia to clear. And that's where I was looking for space. And one example I think of is when I worked in Peru. I'm working for a company, a Canadian company that has a very agile approach, right? And that's what they're used to and how they're wanting to operate. And then here I am working in a culture where that is much more on the clear side, actually. Very rural, very hierarchical, right? To the point that if I ask someone to go down to get, they have to take horses for 8 hours, go and pick up fuel. If I didn't tell people to, that they needed to take the pump with them, They would not think for themselves, like to be able to use the pump to put the gas in the gas cans when they met the fuel truck down there. It wouldn't happen.
Okay.
So there was this expectation, not only in the hierarchy, but who gives what decisions in step by step, right? So that was kind of like, there was a lot of that, not everything, but what I had to do is, I'm in that environment, I had to go into, I felt like I had to go into aporia, and then my actual decision is to switch level of granularity. I switched levels of granularity from my interaction between, the key people I was dealing with. And I switched the level of granular. So I was willing to go into aporia and look around in the backfield, right? And then I was able to go and find there was the guys who had horses, right? Yes, there was people who, they had the horses that we rented from them. They'd come every day, right? And those guys, they would leave their horses just running in the fields, like in the valleys. Like there was no corrals or anything like that. And so they could deal with all of this complexity and somehow they could always find their horses and always be on time with them the next morning, no matter where they were.
So are you
just, those are the people that I was able to leverage the relationships in a way, right? But I have to go into aporia. But so you see, by switching, that's where I started thinking in 3D. Did I go in a different level of granularity? I switched the level of granularity in some ways, or did I move in space then to be able to come down and meet the people where they were? So that I dealt with a part of the crew, it's almost like the contractors, rather than the direct relationships of my direct reports and operations people.
All right.
Managers.
All right. So let me do this to you. Something happens unexpectedly. You go into the middle domain, we'll call it disorder. You were initially confused, right? So are you saying you are confused?
Well, yeah.
You are confused, like what the shit just happened, right? You're confused, you don't know, something just happened to you, right? You're not in aporia yet, where you go like, I know I am confused. I need to look at options. You're not there yet.
But I wasn't confused at the beginning. I was noticing something's different about the environment. So I was very intentional. It wasn't like something was forcing me into do that. So there was a nuance, I believe.
If you do that, you are going from the ordered into the aporia. That's what, that you just said that you're in clear and complicated, and you've deliberately moved into aporia.
I moved from complex into aporia. And that gave me, the aporia actually gave me an option. Then I could see the optionality of switching level of granularity.
Typically, I don't see it that way. I see that when you're in complex, you know where you are. You are in the complex domain, so a different set of tool sets, everything else here. You are not confused anymore. You know that I need to understand, I need to explore, I need to probe. So why would you want to go back to aporia and look for other options?
Well, what's the use of deliberate and intentional aporia? Is aporia not complex then?
No, aporia is.
It's just a change of pace of timing. It's just a slower version of complex.
It's if you think about it, what Dave has, aporia, is part of that liminal space, right?
Right.
He's the liminality line comes through disorder and splits into confused and aporia, right? Got that? Okay. So this is what I'm saying. you need to understand, are you in confused? Are you in the aporia subdomain, if you like, of
Yeah.
liminality? If you're in aporia and it's liminal, it's temporary. That's the idea of, it's a holding space, right? You're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But if you say, what the hell is going on? You're actually in confused because you don't know what the hell is going on, right? You can move, and that's why I was asking you the question. And that's your, I guess that's your pink line. You move into aporia, then because you go like, I am confused, but I know that I am confused now, and I'm okay being confused. I can actually sit here for a while and just maybe just watch what other people do, or I can take action. I have some choices I can make there, right? And that's what Dave talks about, these 5 or 6 different actions you can take. Once you're in aporia and you realize I need to move the complex, then you just move into complex, and then you start the whole sense, probe, and respond. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. You stay
I
in
see the closer time to time. And yeah.
Yeah, liminality is time.
Sporadic is more like, and I think in terms of rocks, you're talking about, is it a ductile, environment versus a brittle environment, right?
Okay,
Can feel more brittle, aporia can feel more ductile. So, and that's, and so I've seen that there's something in there related to time.
well, if you're in the liminal space, if you're going to use the AC domain, then you are using the liminal conniving, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in liminal conniving, then time becomes a major issue, or sorry, it becomes a key issue, right? It's important, right? So then, if you're in aporia, you've got to make these decisions. What should I do next? Right? So how I use aporia for safety is that if you're working along, all of a sudden, bang, you have a failure. You plunge into the chaotic domain. Okay? So what the first thing you do, and that's what we wrote about in our chapter, by the way, Michael and I had to rethink that. If you look at it, we had to rethink, like, once we plunge into chaos, what happens? Well, now we know. We actually stabilize. You make the situation safe. And I use example of, okay, there's a car crash and he hit a pole, bangle. Electricity lines are down. There's blood on the ground because it's a car crash here. Crew shows up. First thing they do is they stabilize the situation. They act. Stabilization means, okay, make the place safe, so nobody else gets electrocuted. Attend to any injuries if there's people hurt. Third one is.
So is that stabilizing, or is that moving into a clear in a way?
No, that is stabilizing. And as you stabilize the situation, you move into the middle. You're not moving back to clear. You're moving into the middle, right? So typically you move into the middle, you move into aporetic, because then you say, okay, we've stabilized the situation here. We're no longer in danger. We've taken ourselves, we've acted. Now we have to sense, we're going like, okay, what's the next step? What do we do? Okay. So
but I mean, that's if you're going to be intentional about it. But things could evolve just beyond stabilizing and right into complex as well. What would be an example?
Well, so you
didn't go into apathetic and you just went right to complex.
No, you don't. You don't. You make your choices. So if I'm a member of a crew leader,
So once you hit a liminal, is what you're saying, if I got it right?
right.
Once you hit a liminal, you have to channel into
So
upper ethic.
let me
Is that
use
right?
an example of mining. Okay, an area you're familiar with here. Okay, you're working in a mine. All of a sudden, there's a collapse in the shaft. Okay, there's a failure. What's the first thing everybody does? They stabilize, right? They make sure if they can, try to make the situation safe, look after the injured people. Then they immediately have to assess the situation. They realize that, oh my God, we're not confused. We kind of know what we need to do, but what are our options? What are options now? One option is let's just go back to the old normal. That's going back to the clear. Okay? We do that in the world of electricity when there's a power outage. We get the freaking lights back on. And we just return things to where they came from. Right? Not saying that's bad or good. That's what we do. We just go back to clear domain. Why? Because we have measures and pressures to get the lights back on. Okay? Now, as a supervisor, manager, I'm going, we'll take that action, but we're not going to stop there. I'm going like, this pole has been the 4th time it's been hit this year. We got to move that freaking pole out of the danger zone. All right? So I then may go up into the complicated and say, you expert safe designers, engineers, I want you to relocate that pole to a better location. Right? So I am taking 2 actions. Get the lights back on, but I don't want to keep on having that pole we just replaced hit again. I want them to move the freaking pole. Right? I stick it into complicated and tell the experts, you can do this. And they go, yes, we can. And they move the pole. Done. Or I may have a situation where, I just can't willy-nilly move that pole because there's politics involved. I have to move the complex. So I have choices. And I do that all in the apparatic space. You get that?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand real options for sure.
Yeah. And that could happen really, really quickly. It could happen over a day or 2 a week, right? So just think, when when there's a mine shaft failure, all those decisions are kind of being made. And some of them take a little bit of time because obviously moving a complex is going to take more time, but so does moving into the complicated take time. Going back to the clear should be really fast, right? It's fast recovery.
Right.
So the key for us is stabilizing and moving into the disorder domain. That's the big shift that we've gone through this year.
Yeah, but like I say, I'm thinking about mapping things as they evolve, right? So you're talking about intentionality and making movements. So that's how we can use it. So yeah, I mean, there's the two applications I get out of your story for sure.
So I look at what you've got here, and I could go through the exercise going like, so let's look at some of those arrows here. Are those arrows?
Well, I wanted to show you a few things first here. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. If we had conneffin in a sphere, something like this. Okay, what could the top, this is what we talk about in terms of, the top. What if one was aporia and one is, is confused at the other end? Then, I see these paths in terms of 3D. right? To me, like when I see the paths and all of these directions in the current Cynefin model, from my own head, I find those very jerky. Like to me, this I can see space and where opportunity lies a whole lot better if I think about it in 3D, and not everybody does. So, you know, I'm just trying to think about what is the middle.
Can I get you to turn off your screen sharing? Then I'll see what you got in bigger, because right now you're very small.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm in the little screen.
All I
here.
see right now is your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see me better now?
No, you still got your screen.
No, I gotta stop the share. Yeah, so what I'm seeing, you know, is there an opportunity here, like if Cynefin, if we had the framework, and of course, and this is again, I'm thinking about container is whatever our situation or evolving situation is in the moment, right? If I'm kind of unifying in my head Glenda's models and Rasmussen's models and Dave's work as well here. So, I mean, if we have a container of a situation and we think about, yeah, where are we starting on that? You know, I was wondering, okay, well, what if we think in 3D instead of having one in plane, you know, 2D, a path that's kind of jerky going around here? What if we can consider that in a sphere, we've got a poria at one end, okay, and then we have, you know, we have the confused at the other one. Then it turns into almost like a 3D model, like topography, right? And that, like, okay, when we think about flow of energy, things like that, you know, is that a connection we can make to how we think of terrain and how energy actually flows in space or in chemistry or in, you know, in physics as well? That's what I'm seeing. Is there a fundamental connection there that makes sense? Whereas, yes, one side mapping a path in 3D up here is more strategic towards aporia, whereas down here, this is more reactive. So this becomes like whether it's systems 1 and systems 2, where are we? And if we ended up, we had, you know, people's experiences in some way mapped to a 3D model, you can get a better idea of how the terrain looks in 3D in a way, right? So that's why I was thinking, oh, this distinction, rather than aporia and confused being right in the middle, what if we think about it as on 2 poles here? And the piece I'm not sure about is what does that do to the liminality? Okay. And in terms of energy as well. So that's something to think about. And when I think about geological materials, we have levels of granularity and gradation that we actually see in rock fragments. You know, even when we think about chemistry and phase changes, I mean, we're finding even about new sources of matter. You know, we've got plasma now. We know, you know, things are changing in terms of our knowledge. You know, are these are these things fixed in space or fixed transitions? I'm not sure. You know, I think it's very useful for the metaphor for sure, because you know, again, I'm talking in very abstract mode right now, Gary. I don't know whether you're following me on this.
Well, I can see the top sphere, you know, when you're in the aquatic hemisphere of your ball, your sphere, moving into the different domains, because that's what Dave talks about, making these kind of deliberate choices. What you're doing for me is, if you're in the confused, moving into the other domains, is that good or bad? Or is that ignorant? Is that stupid? Is that safe? Is that,
Well, this wouldn't be a judgment. It would just be a model where you could see the patterns in 3D. You don't have to put any judgment on it. And that's a very good question.
well, I mean,
Is it?
going
Right?
from,
Because I remember Gail talked about how you need to, when you, that's one strategy for change is forcing polarization so that there has to be space in the middle. And when you actually do that with geological materials, you create a point of extension. And if you're polarizing, um, you know, maybe that is a useful state in some ways.
well, what it does for me is that it points out that if you're confused and you just automatically move into clear, like let's do fast recovery, that could be really dangerous strategy because you haven't really thought about your options. You just automatically go from confused and just, I just robotically move into clear and try to do fast recovery and climb back up the cliff, which could be high energy, resourceful, and could lead to more danger.
Good point. And then I think about, yes, you've just triggered in me thinking about, yes, what if one is very dangerous in terms of, I remember looking, again, it was from the Stockholm Institute. They have a really great video about resilience in terms of the cycles, right? And if you're in, think about depression, right? And down in here, there is depression, a pure state of that is extremely dangerous, but also extreme euphoria as well. I have a cousin who's bipolar, and she's swinging, radically between those. How sustainable is that? So you're right. Maybe the pure end members is not where we want to be, but managing and influencing our differences in between is what, and how the energy shifts and between that space.
Well, you open up the question then is how does a person who ends up in the disorder domain, whether it's through stabilization or just realization that, there's something that's going on here and you haven't fallen into the chaotic domain, how do they move from being confused subdomain into the aphoretic domain? How do they do that? What caused them to make that movement?
Well, exactly. And then I think about, okay, well, does that take us into what do we got as humans? The constructal law, I think about, right? Look at those. Those are the kind of like the core elements. Maybe those are our simple rules that Glenda talks about. Maybe those are our fundamental physics laws as well that influence flow on many states, right?
Well, we talk about heuristics, right?
I've got another.
We talk about heuristics a lot, not rules, because heuristics are those past experiences that have given you success in the past. So you follow those because there are no if-then rules that really work here. So are we talking about applying heuristics to move from confused into aphoretic? So what does Glenda say about that?
Yeah, well, just trying to.
And I don't know if this is more of an individual realization as opposed to a group or team or whatever. This is you going, I'm confused, saying I got to get out of confused and move into aphoretic. So I can start talking to people about different choices.
Yeah.
So this could be a personal level thing you're talking about here.
Yeah, but it can also be where is the collective as well, right? And then you need some kind of catalyst on the bigger scale, something to shift in here to what is an enzyme? An enzyme is a catalyst for change. So what.
But it also could be like, I'm freaking confused, Janice. And Janice goes like, I'm confused as well. How about you, Joe? How about you, Bill? Yep, we're all confused. Now what do we do?
Right.
we have agreement that we're all freaking confused. How do we then move into the apparatic and say, well, let's start looking at what are the choices? And is that
So
moving?
that act is saying intentionality, let's do something, right? Or even to
Yeah.
have that conversation that you're confused, that has already moved you into apparatic in some way.
Right.
That there's been some spark of initiative in there.
We also have sound that goes like, I'm not confused. I think we just need to go fast recovery and climb up that big hill. And some people go like, I don't think so, Sam. Right? So where does that conversation I mean, these are conversations which one could say happens in the complex, but I'm going like, I'm wondering if they're actually taking place in the disorder domain.
So they're going to be having there'll be the big collective ball, right? But there's the individual ones that everybody's operating on.
This is saying like we're at that bottom polar of confused before we just start thinking of options. I think we need to move up into the somewhere along that spectrum anyways, move ourselves up maybe towards more the top so that we can start analyzing our options. I mean, like another option would be like, I'm confused. Let's call a team in. They'll solve it. Team, poof, go make it happen. Right? And then the team goes like, what the hell is going on here? You know, right? Yeah. They're not in the liminal space. They don't know what to do. They've just been told, poof, go make it happen. What? Right? Right? And that's typically, I guess, in management terms, that could be abrogation, right? As it could be what Trump is doing. Oh yeah, I mean, you guys look after it. I'm out of here. And soon something's going to take place because he's really confused. He won't admit it.
So there's a difference that makes a difference. There's something in the terrain that's a little bit different. So there's something else connected to the system that we may not be aware of that is a difference, giving us a difference in topography, kind of like how an avalanche propagates, right? In a way.
We got to
or a landslide. You might see it and you may not see it. But
you got to move them into the apparatic subdomain where liminality comes in, right? And with liminality comes in, you get boundaries. You are a team of 5 people. Here's your resources here. Here's your task. Here's your mission. It's called Operation Warp Speed. Go make it happen, right? You get all that sort of stuff here.
So what drives people's need to be in teams to be able to do that? I mean, I'm just trying to think on a science basis. Yeah.
So if you look at it from a science,
I know Gabe's talked about it a lot. So
if you talk about it in natural science, understanding, of course, that humans are not ants or termites, whatever, we know that. But typically, what happens in the world of ants, we get what we call stigmergic energy, right?
Yeah, that's
just naturally happens. If you know, like I think the example I used many years ago, the ants have got this really nice food chain or this line, and all of a sudden somebody comes along and they put a bottle on there or rub out the line. They automatically don't have meetings or whatever. They automatically start looking for other alternatives to reconnect to that food source. It just happens, right? And they just start, you know, dropping pheromones and all those little things here until somebody discovers, oh, there's another path around to get to here. Now, what we do as humans, our brain does pattern matching, but first fit pattern matching. Soon as somebody comes back, says, oh, we got a connection, it's this way, everybody goes, yay, and all these other experiments, whatever, they just stop. We're in the world of ants, this may be a connection, but other ants are looking for better connections. We don't do that as humans. We do first fit. And that's what, you know, Kahneman's thinking fast is all about. Make these fast connections. we're in thinking two, it's like, can we become more efficient, more effective, and find a better connection? Right? We don't do
At
that.
some level, don't we have that, don't we retain that kind of, if we're an evolved species, retain that ability, a thread of it, or?
Well, because it takes up resources.
Yeah.
The people in charge.
Yeah, it's all resource driven,
Yeah, we got a solution. Okay, everybody stop, right? Don't spend any more time on that. We got our solution here. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what typically would happen. Like, okay, we got the lights back on here. We put the pole back where it's going to be. We carry on. But knowing damn well as a human, this is why humans aren't ants or anything else here. I'm going like, that pole is going to be hit again 4 months from now because it's in bad location here. We need to do something about that and move that pole. It's very vulnerable. But that's going to take resources, right? And what happens in the electrical world is we'll go around and we'll do patchwork. Every time we have a winter storm, we do patchwork here with the idea is that we'll come back and fix that permanently. And we never do. So right now we end up with a patchwork of stuff just with Band-Aids and everything else here, waiting for the next big catastrophe to come to just wipe out everything. Why? We move on to fixing the next problem. Right? Because we got the lights back on. Okay. So how does your model help then? Kind of like open up some, one area it's done for me.
Well, if I'm thinking about,
confused.
where I was thinking about, but, I know there's gaps in here, but in materials, right? There's accidental things like faults that will happen. And there is also ductile strain and strength of materials. So aphoria can be more, and are they separate? It depends on the initial material, but also the timing together, whether something can be ductile and fold, give you time when you go into the backfield to assess without breaking, or, or do you break, are you closer to brittle failure if you're confused? That's debatable.
Well,
so that I'm just thinking about with materials, the way that works. And then if I go back to.
Okay, so let me ask you the other question. Do rocks have brains? Do rocks think? They may not think like ants have brains and termites.
Yeah, but do cells? Does our DNA? They are all based on energy, right? And energy interactions and atoms and everything like that. So we go right down to a deep level of granularity as well as think about the mountains. That's kind of the very unique perspective that we get as geologists, is we can think in scale. But we can also think in far field stresses, big plate tectonics, but also near. And then we also think about transformations and flow and interactions of all of these things. Right from, hey, it'd be a different story if we didn't have a magma.
So give me an example how we can relate that to rocks where it looks like rock.
Yeah, and that's what I'm exploring here. If we start talking about, there's metaphors we can use in terms of here. We have, well, there's a couple of things. If you looked at this figure here, bring this one up here. Okay. I mean, there you've got terrain, right? And these are mountains. Right. So when we think about, how those form, those are actually active eroding. If a geologist will say, yeah, that's an active environment. Other people might see those rocks as fixed. Right. So it's again the angularity of your view.
Yeah.
But the terrain is the current context that people are also seeing. And we can see those topo lines are made from they're derived from a number of points, right? equal elevation. So you've got an X, a Y, and a Z. There's always three elements for us to locate where we are in space. But what's important there is, see those lines, those are vectors, right? So that's different. There's scalars, and I like to think about, like, we've got scalars and we've got vectors. So if I'm looking at SenseMaker and our stories, for example, the triads that we do, to me, those are, we've got, in the moment, we've got scalar entities that we ask them to map in each one, and that would be like our geochemical results in the rock. Okay, they're like characterizing the context. But then there's also in some of those, when we look at our dyads as well and our demographics, there's questions in there about, differences. And those are the vectors in terms of what, how often has this happened? It happens all the time, or it doesn't, or whatever. And there's also things about intensity, which is, the emotion behind it. And words mean different things to different people. So I remember I liked that wellness, really well-being sense maker, where you could actually pick out the figure that was hanging off the bridge, or are they walking across, or where are they? But in that well-being sense maker, they let you actually use an image instead of the words for common language. But then the important thing is that vector. So you've got different elements in there. And if we're going out in the field and mapping something, we're actually looking at location. We're looking at some very interesting fine features that are artifacts of that tell us the story of not only where we are, but but how did things evolve in the past? And I think that could also be helping us. We're mapping in a similar way with SenseMaker to evolve into the future. But one of the pieces I think that's not necessarily being used well enough is, how do we get, the vector elements? Because actually sometimes we see features that have developed, that represent these vectors, where you see how steep it is over on this side over here. That could be a fault. And if we went and looked at that, we would see little tiny fabrics that show that direction. And that can be what people are talking about in terms of intensity, or it happens all the time, or it just happened in the moment, or, this might be less emotion tied to it, and rate of change, or something like that. So I'm thinking about how we can actually show things, because if you're mapping patterns of these different elements in the field, what we're looking for is where things intersect, okay, or not. Are they moving towards? Are they moving away? And where is space opening because of the way those, the rocks are coming together, or moving apart because of the stress and strain. And we have to actually see those elements all together. To be able to discern them. So that's what we try to do. And I just show you the kind of like the level of granularity here. For example, if we're looking at a piece of rock, you see these big arrows here? That's telling you that there's been movement, right? Things have moved. You can think about even with people. Things have moved us in a certain direction, or force coming on us that we're feeling. There'll be all of these in natural materials. You'll start to get these fabrics that actually develop. So there are emergent fabrics here that we call a foliation, but they're not actually going in the same direction. That's a piece that's critical, this oblique part, where we can really misinterpret things if we're not careful. So, and then, there's these other fabrics that can evolve in the middle. This is, so we're seeing the whole progression. We're able to see a vector essentially of change the way these different fabrics develop. And then, you know, even if we're going further in a progression here, it goes even farther and keeps going over time, then you actually start to develop places where things crack open. And why do they crack open? Because look, the stress, strain, and everything is migrated. And if you went right over here to this intersection, look at what that space would look like. It's opening this way and it's opening this way. All of a sudden, you have a point of space that opens and propagates. And that is where we can potentially, by mapping vectors, you know, or considering elements, we can better detect areas of opening and areas of closing as well. So that's where I see potential in applying the way we, and I'm thinking, okay, what if we could do this with the stories and the information that we have as well?
Sure.
For an unutilized aspect. I think it's abstract to explain to people, but it needs to be demonstrated.
Let's go back to your picture. Let's go back to your picture. Let me explain how I would use this. Right? You talked a bit about the blob character diagram, which we use in Math Sense, right? Like, how do you feel about this?
Right.
You could do this.
Yeah.
You could say, look at this picture here. Okay, and this would be a picture without the arrows to start. Then you could ask Petra, like, how would you emotionally assess this? Right? Give it your range, and you can kind of go like, and this is not about being serene, beautiful, all those sort of adjectives, but it's about, is this a safe picture? Is there any danger here? Are you kind of like on that? Are you on the, does this picture make you afraid? Are you fearful that something bad is going to happen? So you can start getting people's feeling of how they feel about seeing this picture,
right?
Then you can kind of go like, on the surface, we just don't know. But everybody's got this range of emotions here. What we need to do is go a little bit below and start looking at what are the tensions, what are the pressures, what are the factors that are at play here. And that's where we do with triads, with signifiers here. We do that as geoscientists as well, because we'll start by looking at the right side. And we'll look at that steep cliff. We'll actually start taking samples of the rocks. And then from the sample, we can take a composite from that. And from that, we can probably examine, look at what are the tensions that are at play here, the stresses, what else? We can start looking at maybe at the composite or the sample, where are there fault lines that are here? And are these fault lines kind of like on that clear, chaotic boundary? Are they nearing a tipping point defined by the laws of gravity? Right? So from a geoscientist perspective, it may be like, I'm really worried about those houses down below here because that rock cliff is going to fall on them and kill them. Right? The trained eye doesn't know that. Right? And it also could be a real long, and I'm talking over the next 1,000 years, by the way. I don't know what the time frame is going to be. Or it could be like, they're in immediate danger. We need to evacuate those people, right? So you can get that kind of stuff here. Then you can also go like, well, let's look over on the left side. You've got more of a slope there of some, looks like there's more solid rock. Well, we can analyze how stable, what are the boundaries, right? And get into that here. And also can say like, oh, look at the, the angle of recluse. That's a good angle. It looks like we won't have any crumbling rock falling anymore down into the valley. That's happened over the years, and that's why we've got that angle there. So it's fine now. So that left side is stable. We're good. The right side, I'm not so sure of.
there. But if you go back thousands of years here, why do we even have this valley here? Why do we have this meandering creek down here? Well, it's because that meandering creek over many, many years, it just kind of like worked its way through the rock mass, right? And created that valley, which looks very peaceful and serene. Right? So, and we find that, of course, pattern all around the world here. So you
Yeah,
can't
and
you can go look at and stresses and tensions, because what's really important is that now you've got somebody who kind of says, well, I want to change this here. Human advancement, development here. I want to dam the creek way up at the front or whatever here. I want to, or I want to flood this valley here for hydroelectric power here. Right? All those sort of human interventions come in here. Now it's kind of like, if you do that, what's it going to do to this? Right?
yeah, and what you're saying there kind of relates to, I was explaining something similar to entrepreneurs. Like they were talking about marketing and ethical marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether you've heard about, people talk about these funnel strategies, trying to, what they'll do is they're trying to go from big, right? Or they'll do, or down, or they'll do directed and out. And will use different tactics, right? Lead magnets and things like that to try to narrow people into a funnel. But one of the challenges is I'm trying to explain is, you don't know where people really are, what their starting point is.
Right.
You've got their attention, so they're looking at you in one direction. And you're, for some reason, you've become an attractor to them, a signal in the noise in that moment. And, but we have to be careful because, people, and I've done it myself, where I have been drawn to something. And if it's like, if I'm over in this state, or like I'm confused, I don't know I'm in this state, confused, right? I sometimes you could even think you're in aporia and you're not, because of the level of granularity, right? And then I'm actually more, I think I'm in this kind of terrain, but the situation has me in here because there's been an artificial shift in the topography done by the marketing and the marketing procedure that has narrowed my perspective. And then I've bought into something I never should have, because if I had taken a step back into aporia to review and gotten context, I would never have bought into that, for example. So I think it's interesting because I see marketing is sold in a very linear way, where ethical marketing is more, how can we see the terrain and the readiness for people really for what we're offering, because it's about the flow of value. You want the flow of value down here. But if we're, as people who are selling services, are just stood here and not really paying attention to the terrain and what we're doing to, our actions are doing to shift the terrain or the system for those people, what's the impact, right? Because I think about the sun, even, you have these little, there could be these little ridges where there's water, think about flow of water. And, all of a sudden, the sun coming down, if that's my marketing, beating down on people, but if that water is near a cliff, it can just come crashing down. Mm-hmm. And that's not sustainable flow, right? To have that happen.
Well, I'd even ask the question, who is the target for the marketing? Is it the people down below living a very happy, stable, sustainable life? Or is it somebody that's upstream that's going to...
But we don't necessarily know enough. I think I've seen in a lot of these marketing gurus is is they just talk about your avatar. And it's like, it's such a narrow thing when we think about what's happening in the dynamics in people's lives at any given time. We don't have feedback loops to be checking in with people and what's shifting for them.
Well, I'll even go further back and question the whole. I'll even go back and further and question the concept of marketing. What's marketing all about itself? I mean, like, is marketing part of a capitalistic system that's broken? I mean, like, why are we having to sell? Like, why is this notion of having to sell even? Why do we have to sell people on things as opposed to engaging people?
Yeah. Well, there is engaging. These people are, you know, they honestly do see themselves as engaging, and they do. They're authentic. I follow a number of them.
Then if you're really engaging me,
what's going on with other people, right?
Yeah. But if you're really engaging me, you don't have to. You don't need my buy-in. You don't have to sell to me, right? You should be able to just influence me to make that decision. Going like, I kind of like what you're going with that, and I'm attracted to it. Therefore, I'm willing to contribute some of my limited resources towards that.
Yeah.
There's no buy-in, because every time I hear the word buy-in, I think of a transaction as opposed to a relationship.
No, these people don't talk in that language, and they don't authentically act in that language. But so they're not talking sales at all. It's their notion is to serve. They're there to serve, right, in the best interest of, you know. But what's missing, I believe, is that they're only seeing what's best for them in that narrow context of the one problem they're solving, they're geared to solve. So if somebody, and I think that goes into theory of constraints as well, if we only look at, you know, that narrow problem, and we've got, people have all kinds of different pains or itches or things in their lives, right? And if our focus ends up, we could be looking in the total wrong direction, focusing on one pain to be solved, a problem to be solved. And it's whoever is right in front of us sees that, right? Yeah, I can help you with that.
Right.
And that's the difference between wants and needs, right? Maybe that's our focus, and that's our wants.
I would say, if you develop or define a market, you're doing what Glenda talks about, is creating a container. And you create a container with boundaries, and there are certain sort of things within those containers, particularly humans, that are willing to kind of go with what you got. So, like, I mean, there are so many different ways.
It can be open or it can be closed, right? So there is open containers.
Well, it could be so wrong as well. For example, if you look at our demographics, we always look at as markets. We go into generation X, Y, Z, whatever here, and people are going like, yeah, and the other people going like, that is so fundamentally wrong, because if we're looking at digital, for example, digital transformation here, we shouldn't looking at what the millennials think, what your generation X think here. No, because I do not put myself in that category here. I am not a senior person opposed to a millennial person here. I happen to be a person that's fairly in tune with the internet world as opposed to somebody who's not. And if there's anybody that's discovered that, it's the US politics, where they discovered there are educated people living in urban areas versus rural people that are non-educated. That's a totally different market. And it's a market, in some cases, the Trump and the GOP understand, and the Dems didn't in 2016. And so now they figured that out, and they got straightened away here, is that we need to look at different ways of markets, or slicing and dicing here. And those are all our market boundaries, as you well know, are artificial anyways. So they're just human, human constructs, and that's all they are. So in terms of trying to respond to Dave's, what's your next step? What can you do with that?
Well, like I say, yeah, I'm gonna think about this operatic because I could put them right in the middle, you know, if I wanted to, you know, like that. Be working in 3D, or I'm still not sure about whether it could be.
I
I have
like,
to think about that liminal thing from a science basis because, you know, from I think about materials and what we know of, even, I mean, the liminality thing is there, but is it as fixed? It's not fixed, you know, the phase transition
Yeah.
and
so,
what actually happens in that phase moment.
so if somebody were to ask you, when a cliff or a piece of a cliff breaks off and falls down into the valley, can you explain that in terms of thinking, intent, deliberate action? Is there actually somebody thinking, oh, I think it's time to fall, we've reached the tipping point? Or does it just naturally happen?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, like, we know about tipping points as humans, but rocks don't know about tipping points. How do rocks know, oh, it's time to fall?
Yeah, yeah. But yet the patterns that we have, you
Yeah.
know, that's another question. The patterns in human decision making, is that, you know, what drives all of that down on a very fundamental level? Are
Yeah.
we actually right down into the chemical
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
physical realm
Yeah.
as well in terms of that, right?
yeah, the atomic level here. Who decides if a grain decides, oh, it's time to fall. I've reached this tipping point of a certain
Yeah.
degree or whatever, or like, I don't like this water that keeps on touching me. I have to break away from it.
Yeah.
What really happens? You know,
Well, like you say, it's levels of derivatives, I think, in terms of you know, math as well. Like, you know, humans have this massive, you know, capacity for integration, and all of our abilities are seem to me to be, you know, just you know, coming from more sophisticated levels of interactions ultimately. Even what we call decisions, right, and decision making, and our abilities to talk about them. What's actually going on that we can actually do that?
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
I
I,
mean,
I, I liked your previous model when you actually split those two, because then it, like I said, I was going to say, like, let's talk a bit about some of the, and I don't know if this
Yeah.
is right, but let's look at some of the stupid things that confused people do, right? Without thinking or looking options, they move directly into clear, and they could cause more damage because they didn't know any better, right? So there's an example of, okay, let's just, get things back where they were. Don't think about that. I can see it can get going into complex, like I said, okay, let's form a team and let them look after it. Go to it, guys, right? With no direction, whatever, which they do in liminal. We provide boundaries and resources to enable a team to basically empower that team to act, right? So that would be a dumb move to do, confused to complex. Confused to chaotic, well, if you're not already in chaotic, then if you do something stupid and you plunge into chaotic, yeah, that was really stupid, right? That's pretty obvious, that one there. Now, confused to complicated could be a waste of resources, right? Oh, I'm going to put together this, and again, using, and I would say Trump was confused, but when he initially, way back in 2016, put together this great panel of business leaders, right? And within 2 or 3 months, the whole thing imploded. These guys left saying, he's confused. He doesn't know what the hell, I'm leaving, right? And he just died. Well, there's an example of good old Trump just figured, okay, I'll pull together these experts, business leaders here. didn't work, right? Why? Because
Yeah.
you'd gone from confused to go like, I need to go into aphoretic and think about this a bit more. Then he probably maybe would have had a better chance go from the aphoretic into the complicated, talk to a few of the business leaders and what do you think about it? Play with the idea, maybe move into complex, maybe not, and then grow it from there. I think, for example, I hope, fingers crossed, that's what the Biden administration will do more of, as opposed to reactive, right?
Yeah.
So I found this to be, oh, this is pretty interesting. So that's what led me to think, how do we get people moving from confused into aphoretic? Either on an individual.
Well, what happens in sports if somebody's confused, right? Usually it's you get
Yeah.
If the forces are coming on, and when is there a need to move from confused? The pressure's coming on you.
Right.
And again, that's where I think about that brittle strain or the ductile strain can actually evolve. If you make a fold, it can evolve into a crack after something folds.
I mean, great examples of that is about the only real professional league that's going on right now is NFL football. And you watch the quarterback that's in the pocket, and all of a sudden he gets flushed out and he's scrambling like crazy, right?
Yeah, but
He's probably now. So I question, as the quarterback is scrambling around here, is he confused or is he an aphoretic? And I would suggest that the really good quarterbacks, the smart ones, quickly move from confused to aphoretic.
Yeah.
They can look down the field, analyze, okay, we've trained in this. I know where those receivers are going. The receivers know that anytime we see the quarterback scrambling, one or two things, and this is true. This is what.
So they could operate like almost close. If I'm thinking 3D and closer to a disc here, right? Where they can transfer their energies in between like that, right? So that's where they are because they can do that.
Yeah, I can see it's a two-way between aphoretic and confused, but hopefully it's more one-way, confused up to aphoretic, that you don't go back into confused.
Hopefully not, but it could happen.
It could happen,
right?
Yes. But you can also see when the quarterback that's confused, that's when they'll do dumb things like throw the ball out of bounds and take a grounding penalty. And that's happened a couple of times, right? Because, I mean, they were just.
That's their response, right? They've decided. I think I would argue they've moved out of aphoretic there. Because they've taken a response, right?
Yeah, because they didn't have, and there was time. They didn't have time to look around and realize, okay, there is a potential receiver there, so I can throw it towards him and don't take the grounding penalty. They just realized that I'm going to get killed. And just fire the ball out of bounds or whatever and take the grounding penalty, right? Okay.
Yeah, but they understand the rules, the boundaries.
Oh, they just saw somebody, they were just going to get killed by this guy. Like a survival. Get rid of the ball. That's all I'm doing, right? Right. There's a choice.
But he still had a shred of even under that pressure. Yeah, so there's a gradient there potentially in terms of, he didn't want to, he had a number of things going on. He didn't want to get creamed, obviously. But he still had the heuristic to be instinctive about throwing it out of bounds, right?
To avoid the loss. Yeah, to avoid the loss.
Avoid the loss, right?
Third choice.
Or rugby, they'll do it, depending on where they're in the 22, whether they kick or not, right?
Third choice, of course, would be like just accept what's happening and take the hit and take the loss.
Okay. Take the loss.
Right. Yeah. So what's the worst that could come out of that? Is okay, you lost ground and you lost the down.
Yeah.
Right? But there's no penalty. And if you brace yourself for the hit, you're probably not going to get hurt, because a lot of guys get hurt as they're trying to throw the ball away. The guy lands on him, right? And he's exposed. So there's those options as well.
Yeah. So, but like you say, that if they're good at that fast transition between confused aphoretic and then being able to go where they That's where they got really good at the Rita loops, right? And then to go to complex, or
Yeah.
well, they have to recognize that they have options still, don't they,
Yeah.
in a way.
So in field hockey,
Is that,
yeah,
does that mean they've gone to complex if they recognize apparatic? If there is that where they're looking at the situation consciously, and then is the next one where they actually look at options, is what, are they moving into complex?
yeah. I think it's a very fast move to complex, right? Because, look at Dave's definition of what do you move to be creative, right? You need
Yeah.
Time pressure. You betcha. The guy's going to
Yes.
kill me. Time pressure. You've got limited resources here. I'm running to
Yeah.
the right side of the field. For me to throw it back to the left side, no, I can only look down
Yes.
half the field on that
Yeah.
one there, right? So, and the fast
What's the
thinkers,
third one? Yeah. What is the third one? I always forget.
versus, I need to think about that now. So,
Oh, there was something.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember, it's in my head too. Yeah, I can't remember. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
But that, you're right. The third one is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. Are they consciously moving there, or is yeah, because they're consciously looking at their options. They may not be. Maybe they're going like they already know their options. They've got their heuristics. They've got the instinct. Maybe they're not moving to complex. They've already ratcheted it down, and they move over to. Would that be moving into the order domain then?
Well, what you do is that, you quickly make those, you look at your options, probably in the complex domain. And then from that, you quickly have to make a choice. And your choice may be roll out a little bit further and throw the ball out of bounds over the head of some potential receiver, right? And then the play's over and you start all over again, right? Something that could happen.
But they won't be doing that consciously in the moment necessarily.
Oh, I think they could. Yeah, I think you see some quarterbacks, they're smart and they throw it out of bounds. You'll see some young quarterbacks that don't have that, the seasoned heuristics. As soon as they get into trouble, they just fire the ball out of bounds, and like they don't look around, and they, which is fine. They don't lose anything other than the down, but they don't make any progress if you do that.
Yeah. So heuristics are lying in which domain?
Heuristics happen. Well, heuristics definitely happen in the complex domain because of uncertainty. You don't need heuristics in the ordered domain because you've got rules, if-then rules that take place. So anytime you've got heuristics are those experiences that you've had. In some cases, they are kind of like rules. If I'm in trouble, just throw the ball away, whatever. You develop those over time. Or you roll out to the left or you roll out to the right or whatever. You can do that. But what you and I are talking about now, which is interesting, is heuristics in the AC domain in this order. Because I think you need heuristics to move from confused into apparatic. See that?
Chicken and the egg.
How does a person move from being confused into apparatic?
That's a very good question.
Right. And I'm saying that you probably need these little shortcuts called heuristics. Because your number one heuristic is kind of like, don't do something stupid. Right? Right? So
Don't do something you can't do. Yeah. Or something like that.
Yeah. So, think about that. If we were to apply this, and Dave and I even used, the old US military, stay in communication, keep moving, and search for the high ground, right? In the face of battle. Hey, I think quarterbacks can do that as well. All of a sudden, you're in a planned play, it breaks down,
Yeah.
right? So, and some guys, some defenders going to pile on you, or there's some blitz you didn't expect. So all of a sudden, what's the first thing you do? Keep moving, right? Where do you move? Instead of the high ground, you're probably saying, move away from where the guy is coming at you. So if he's coming from the left, you move to the right. You don't go at him, right?
So there's,
And then the next thing do is they communicate. So their eyes go down the field. You know they're looking for. They're
Yeah.
looking for a receiver that's looking at them. Because the receivers are programmed to go like, okay, I take my 7 steps, I turn around, look at the quarterback. Either he's going to throw me the, oh my
Yeah.
God, the quarterback is scrambling. What do I do? And they actually have receivers, they actually have heuristics as well. And you can see that. All the guys that took the little 5 or 7 yard kind of pass patterns, they automatically go deep. And all the guys that went deep, they come back. That's what happens. They're automatically
Yep.
programmed. And if the guy
Yeah.
is over on the left side and he notices the quarterback has been flushed and he's going to the right, they just cut across the field at the same yard line. So
Yeah.
now the quarterback looks like he just have to go like to have to throw the ball
Yeah, they
further or
try to
shorter.
optimize the line of
Right.
quarterback, so you
right.
can actually even see out of the peripheral vision, probably.
Yes,
Right?
and you'd realize that, okay, the guy's cutting across the 40-yard line. I'm going to aim the ball at the 40-yard line over here.
Yeah.
To make it simple for them. That's what happens, and they break down. This is what their receivers and quarterbacks are trained to do. So some cases you and I just figured out, hey, like those heuristics nicely apply going from confused to operatic.
And that's an important question. Are people able on their own to move from confused to operatic?
And once you're in operatic, you've got, okay, you're probably, I can't really call in an expert at this time. So you're not going to go to the complicated. You're not going to look to the sidelines, kind of going, coach, can you help me here? Don't have the time. You're essentially in complex, right?
Well, it depends, because I think you can move in any direction from operatic. Whether it's appropriate for context is another story.
Well,
so what if can we remove the appropriateness? Because if we think about where are people actually moving, they could be moving.
They are moving.
But is it energy efficient and appropriate is another good question.
They're moving, and they're moving in a pattern, right?
Yeah.
A pattern that there has been some training and practice in. You go deep, I go short, you cut across, right?
Yeah.
They don't go back into clear, because basically when the whole play broke down, clear broke down. I couldn't throw the ball because I had to get out of the pocket. So clear is gone. Complicated is gone as an option, because there are no other experts than just us guys on the field at this point. So you're into the complex, and you're going to have to follow these kind of like ingrained patterns.
So I'm thinking about, though, remember how when we originally talked about disorder, it was where if you were in there, it would be like confused, you would default to whatever experiences, informed you, or heuristics or whatever. You would default to to that in terms of if you were going to respond. So
and typically
if we think of operatic being, yes, you're conscious, but you're not necessarily. What if you're not assessing the environment correctly? Who's to say? Because confusion, you could be totally unconscious, but operatic, you're actually looking at things. But your response, I think about, the action versus the outcome can still be a mismatch.
Oh, sure.
can't
I
it?
mean, like, and it happens. You throw the ball there, you know, a quarterback, oh, I see the guy coming back, he throws a ball here. He doesn't see the linebacker because he's so narrowly focused on the receiver that he throws it,
Yeah.
and the linebacker comes in between, intercepts the ball. Failure,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? That could happen, right? Or one receiver, a new receiver, doesn't know what's going on here, and he just stands there. And you can see that too. He doesn't go anywhere, so he's really easily defensed. So he eliminates himself as an option.
Right. Yeah.
Right? All these sort of things kind of happen.
Yeah. Interesting. Let me put that in there.
So
What
I
about-
found what you've done here, actually this little diagram, to be actually useful for that conversation we've had for the past hour, and it's taking a closer
Yeah,
look.
and I haven't really shown you anything about the stereo net yet, but
I did, yeah, I don't.
I have to work through a few of the concepts. I think a lot more
Well,
before I do that.
if you do the stereo with the ball, what's coming out of me of our short conversation is that's what you want to do in the top half of the ball, and the bottom half of the ball, the sphere, is maybe you don't want to do that.
I think you want to find, but if you're interacting with people, right, and if we had several people involved, I'm thinking like in a sense maker case with all of their stories, there's an opportunity to see better where the openings are for good, both good and bad reasons. Where are the points of convergence and divergence, the patterns of divergence? Whether, and then, you know, that just, yeah, when you can actually see those patterns better.
Well, if you come back to the whole idea of Knevin and, you know, answer complexity, it's all about making decisions. Are you
Yeah.
making good decisions, or are you making not so good decisions? Right? To me, good decisions come if you happen to be in the operatic disorder subdomain. I don't think anything comes up good if you're in the confused and you make a decision.
Well, decisions get made for you.
Or you just made
It's
really
what happens.
dumb, or let's distinguish between stupid and ignorant. Right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Okay, so going from confused to clear one or two times could be ignorance. Oh, now I know I can't do that. You do that
Right.
another time, that's stupidity, right? So
So I need a third thing in here.
well, you know
When
what?
you think about it, yes. Is it authentic confusion?
Yeah, what we're talking a bit about is, of course, the movement. We're really talking more about the arrows, right?
Yeah,
Right, as opposed to the boxes. To me are fine. I mean, the fact that you split this order in two, hey, I like that.
yeah, because like I say, we're talking about the interactions, and because yeah, that's the piece we very much look at in terms of vectors.
Yeah.
Directionality.
I mean, our NFL quarterback example, probably you could probably talk about that in terms of your field hockey experience. You've got the ball,
yeah.
you've got somebody coming on you, and they're going like, oh, what do I do? And some people would just kind of like close their eyes and just bash the ball, whatever. Or did they actually, you know, what heuristics do they actually apply? And the other thing too is that in your practice, did you kind of like, as I just recently learned in soccer, they always go into triangles. So you always have two options. You know,
Yep.
you practice that in field hockey too. Like, oh, somebody's coming at me. I've got two options. What are they? Okay, this is a better option. Bang, gone. Right, relieves the pressure. Right.
Yeah.
Or as opposed to like, I have no options. What do I do?
Right. Well, we also like, it's a big thing for seeing the space. We talk about space before we even see connections. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of the
Yeah.
the,
I got-
the edges and the containers. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can I guess an option is you can back up, right? Head back towards your goal, which looks kind of stupid, but it's no different than when teams just pass the ball back, right? And they reformulate and start
Oh,
again.
yeah, it's used a lot, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
right.
using the plane, yeah, very strategic. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Right.
because that person has kind of said, "Here, I don't have any good options here. No, I always have one option. Send it back and start over again."
Right. Yes, and that's an important point. You can always step to operatic.
Yeah. So in games that are constant flow, like soccer or hockey, that's an option. You know, interesting about football? Football really, it's all about going forward. It's not about going backwards.
Yeah,
And if
it's
you,
an odd game that way,
Yeah.
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
and if you do go backwards, that's considered negative. In other sports, going backwards is fine.
True. Oh my goodness, what does that say culturally? Oh my God, yes, it does. Like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, make America great.
Yeah, football is, if you want to talk about flow, football is not a good game really about flow. Soccer, hockey, field hockey, those are games of
Yeah.
constant motion and flow.
Yes.
There's not, you could talk about flow of a game of football at a higher granular level. Yeah, right. Like who had the ball, whatever, and moving down here.
Yes.
But on a
Yes.
play-by-play basis, not
No.
really.
It's giving me things to think about here. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it would be really neat if you were to introduce, I mean, different metaphors, whether it be rocks. Use it. I mean, I like that picture you showed because there's so many ways you can interpret that picture.
Yeah, because you can move it around and you can think of it, oh, is it like this, right? And you could sort of see
Yeah.
that as if it's 3D.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
Is
that
it
one.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other one, I like when you showed the picture of the valley. I mean, like, what do people think of that emotionally?
And
You
I
can-
like your idea of using that for mass sense. Yes.
you get a wide range. I really fear for the people down below. You may get that.
Yeah.
To all like, wow, this is a place where I love to retire and live out my rest of my life.
Yep. That's right.
Well, I wouldn't if I know that they're building a big dam like 300 miles up ahead. And if it were to break, I'd get totally washed out. Would that worry me? Then you get all about, then you start this whole risk conversation here. Well, that's the risk and choice I make, right? Why do we live in Vancouver, Janice, when we're living on a fault line?
I know. Well, look at all those people in Bangladesh. Oh my goodness.
I mean, they're like,
But they don't necessarily have an option to move, though, do they? You know,
No.
they're in those floodplains.
yep, we do. I mean,
Yeah.
what's holding you and me in Vancouver, right? Probably a lot more
Exactly.
things as to worrying about some fault line breaking, and then we're getting floods and earthquakes or whatever. So
Right. And like you say, maybe it's like, you know, what we believe about how close or how distant the threat is. Right? We're still looking at probabilities and options and
yep, and
well,
when we really shouldn't be, because we know it's a brutal world out there, right?
yeah, yes, yes. Well,
Oh well.
yeah. I have some way to explore. It's interesting because I'm in a economics, mineral economics course right now.
Cool.
And so it's very refreshing because one fellow is a hedge fund manager, and the other guy is a mineral metallurgist, right? So mining. And then I got to be a panelist with them last week, which is really cool. But they're very much touting, you know, similar, like I say, what Hank got us onto about, you know, also seeing the whole, right? And the parts as well, but getting out of the just only staying in the silos in the specific areas, start to understand more of the interactions and the dynamics. So yeah, their talk is about, you know, we should be thinking about not targets, but let's think goalposts. You know, you've got a range that you can be operating in, so it's really refreshing. What they're touting from, you know, particularly the guy on the mining side, they're really working to influence that, which is cool.
Yeah, it's really about the arrows and the flows and the relationships and the interactions going on here. One of the things that Hank, we're just kind of looking at is this whole thing with Rio Tinto, right? And the fact that they kind of broke their promise and the relationship, you know, and they did some real damage. And now Rio Tinto is saying they're going to make executives accountable for heritage destruction, get all that sort of stuff there. We're seeing that some of the banks, I think, denied BHP a loan because of social licensing issues. It's slowly coming. All that we're not, so
but yet I still worry that the response, it like, are we not having these conversations about what's going on in the decision-making world of leaders and, you know, and how they lead, right? That's still a system. These are all system factors as well. And you know, when I think about, I'm in that paradigm for human organizational performance. You know, what is the tipping point between accountability, right? And
well, there's that. I mean, it's such a wicked problem. I mean, all that, you know, if we're going to get involved in it, it's all about, okay, you need to kind of understand where the traditional owners are coming from. How do you do that? Are you sending out so-called expert consultants, or are you gathering stories and narratives and seeing the patterns kind of form here? And now I'm looking this whole idea of counter mapping. I mean, we have maps, what we think the world looks like, you know, the Mercator maps. And when I first saw the Mercator maps, I thought all water flowed from the top down to the bottom. Then you realize that in British Columbia, water kind of flows the other way. Oh, up to the north. I didn't know that. Hey,
interesting.
right?
Yes.
So now we're looking at counter maps. And one of the counter maps is, how do the traditional owners map the land? And it's a lot different than geographical.
But you know, the interesting thing is, from I know of people who do work in those roles in those big companies, and they do a lot of that, right? That type of data collection and listening to stories. But one of the challenges is not necessarily the right information gets conveyed, right? I mean, you got to imagine these decision makers have so much coming at them. It can be a noisy place, and I think it's a leadership issue rather than an operational issue. I think they are doing these things, and it's like when I've been on projects and colleagues have been on big ones that actually got into a lot of hot water, where they modeled the deposit and they said there was so many ounces of gold, you know, or did an estimate that there was so many ounces of gold. And then when, you know, a fund comes in to have a look, it's way off base, right? And what was wrong is, you know, they were collecting oodles and oodles of data, but there was a part in their system where it all got funneled into one person who was doing the model. And it was a very complex model, so there shouldn't have been one person doing that interpretation. And then, you know, that person was very connected to the executive, so there's a power differential between them and the more experienced technical people who had diverse views about things. So there was a barrier that had formed between the modeler and the people who were actually, you know, in the core shack, who were seeing all these things and putting up their hands about it. And there was no, you know, they had lost sight. If you looked at their systems, data collect, you'd say, wow, these guys are really responsible. They're doing everything right. But there was somewhere where there's a barrier that shouldn't have been there for the complexity they were dealing with. And by narrowing down like that, and there's a number of situations like that in the mining industry. So I think it's less of whether they've done those kind of things, and yet, but I think it's more of on the leadership side.
Oh, and it's pervasive. It's not just the mining industry. It's in all
Yeah,
industries.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, like
Yeah.
the fact that people are still being say you have to create a business case for it. That for me sends off alarm bells now. So you want a business case on something that's uncertain. You have no real, you can't predict the future. So you have to make this whole bunch of assumptions. So and these assumptions may fit in your world of probability, so you can do severity and frequency. But some of those assumptions are in the world of plausibility, and you can't even predict those things. And by the way, are you going back and testing those assumptions as you're going through, or are you just, oh, well, they got buried on, the appendix, whatever here. And everything boils down to some financial number.
Yes.
What is wrong with this? A lot. There's a lot wrong with this thing here. So we're not going to crack that nut. I mean, like it starts with even what are universities teaching in MBA programs? Are they teaching the old traditional economics? When this whole thing of evonomics now and donut economy, all these things are out here now. All these the things that you're grounded upon, you almost have to reflect back and going like, is my grounding really solid as it is? Or are we discovering that a lot of these things I learned in school are turning out to be myths and fallacies? Why? Because of new things we've learned. It's not that we're being taught deliberately wrong things. That's what we knew at the time.
That's right.
So,
we knew about Santa.
Yeah. So
although Santa was a myth, but it served a purpose at some point in time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I mean, a lot of these leaders, I do feel sorry for them. So the small point is, I mean, like, hey, I don't envy you being a CEO, but where I think you can get better is have a better informed information base for your decisions here, right?
Yes.
And that's why, and this is why the distributed ethnography thing. Why I think we're getting huge traction with this thing now, because people are going to see it. Because as you well know, it's actually compared to some sort of traditional survey, we are faster, better, cheaper. Hey, no two ways about it.
And that's the point. And so that's the point with like real is that situation. Is there no one like, I know safety people who have involved with them on the safety front here in Canada. And they're like very risk adverse, right? So they have policies and procedures and, to the nth degree.
Right.
But they'll pay for it all. They walk the talk.
Right.
They'll pay for everything and expect their contractors to do, right?
Right.
And so there isn't that level of autonomy there. And I mean, they could have very well have been over in the clear and gone over the cliff, right?
Yeah. So when I hear that, my question to them, like, you've got a whole mess of rules in the order system. Good for you, because that provides stability. Nothing wrong with that here. So tell me, can you share with me, what is your rule for breaking a rule?
Yeah.
And they'll go like, what do you mean? Well, do your rules always work 100% of the time? And they go, well, yeah, they do. Okay, so tell me, what were your rules when COVID-19 hit?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you don't have a rule? Oh, of course you wouldn't have a rule, because you didn't even think about COVID-19. That's understandable. Exactly. So what is a rule for breaking a safety protocol? Because you have to abide by the new COVID protocols. And they'll go like, oh, we don't. Okay, so what do you want to do about it? Right? Yeah. So all you do is you don't put, as we're trying to say, you don't put doubt in their mind. You put curiosity in their mind.
Yeah.
They
yeah,
go,
yeah.
because curiosity fuels complex domain better than doubt does. Because doubt is fear, it's conservative.
Yes.
Curiosity says, I want to probe, I want to explore. I don't know what those miners are going to do now with that. Oh, did you realize that you have an issue with your women that are on the assembly line?
Yeah.
They can't get any PPE that fits them. Everything is being designed for a man. Did you realize that?
Yeah.
Oh, does that make you curious? Because that's one of the number one issues in women in safety conferences. So they have to, they get gloves that are too big, shields that don't fit. And you want these people to be comfortable working in these new conditions? Are you actually enabling danger to emerge? Are you curious about that?
Yeah.
Right? So then it's like, well, I'm curious. What are we going to do about here? Well, number one is let's do mapping. Let's figure out, let's do a Cynefin map, right? And figure out where your people are today. How are they feeling? Because I don't know, you don't know what's on their mind. Maybe women PPE is on their mind, or maybe they figured it out without you knowing it. But there's some other issues with the forklift that they're trying to hassle with. Don't you want to know about those things? Are you not curious
Yeah,
about
and
those
you know what, I
things?
like that because when you say evoking curiosity.
Yeah.
That to me is like a step into apparetic, right? Because you're taking a step to, you
Yeah.
know, an intention and a
Yeah.
commitment to make sense. You're going into a curious state.
Yeah.
Is that
So
what ready?
my line of questioning has gone from, oh, right, I'm confused now because I never thought about that, to
Yes.
apparetic. What choices do I have? Well, you can go and bring in a bunch of experts like McKinsey and whatever, and they'll take you down the idealistic path. Don't recommend that. Or else you can go and talk to these people and say, no, we're just going to go back to the old normal. Well, you think that's going to work? No, well, then I think you got to go into the complex domain and start exploring these things. How are we going to do that? Well, this is the whole idea of learning teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's what I'm going to talk about, I guess, with Brent Sutton on his podcast. Why are
Cool.
learning teams useful?
Yes. No, that's very good. Very good.
Right?
Yeah. So that's thinking about these things.
Yeah. So same thing with the marketing idea. I mean, like, number one step for anything for us is you need a map of your current state. Start there, right?
Yeah.
Right. Then, and from that current map, you may discover that the market that you thought was there isn't there, but this market is. Who knows?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Still find them to be very linear in your approach. Well, I think what the problem is the feedback loops. They're the feedback loops these marketers are talking about, and they're, like I say, they're authentic about serving, but they're using these software systems that give them numbers about clicks and opens.
Yeah.
And it's really not telling people about what's going on behind their motivations, right? And what's shifting for them in their lives or whatever. They're numbers. They're not getting to that level of detail.
Yeah, and you know, when I see this thing about clicks and add clicks and everything else here, I'm curious about, so Google is coming out and saying they're going to stop third-party click sharing.
Oh.
I'm going like, oh, this is interesting. I don't know the ramifications because I don't know enough about that. But obviously there is an issue there and people are scrambling because of that. What's going to happen, right? Is it going to basically turn the market upside down? I don't know.
Yeah. They announced they're gonna do that, or are they exploring that?
Oh, they actually, let me just find that for you.
That's
They
amazing.
announced that, I think in January. Let me just click. I kept, uh, why? Oh yeah, here's here. Let me just send you this. Let me just see this is the right thing first of all.
Third-party cookies.
All right, so let me just this is an article from Strategy and Business. It's called "Get Ready for the Post-Cookie World." So let me send that to you right now. This is fascinating. Now it's just this beginning of this month.
Really?
Yeah, and they announced it in January beginning this year that they would start phasing it out. So now that's what they're doing. So what does this mean to these digital marketers? I'm not sure. There you go. Yeah, you got her.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll go get it. Yeah.
Or just click on continue to site. Oh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you were there. You could just click on continue to site and the article will come up.
Should just,
Oh, go back to my article on the chat. Click up that.
okay, so that's,
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff
Right.
that's
oh, yeah.
resulted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, this
Yeah.
is.
I found this article useful. Oh, is that an article? Is that where you got the picture from? I like that.
Well, what it is it's a geologist who's very good at explaining about,
Oh. Can you,
about vectors and the
Okay.
problem with vectors. He's very great. I'd love to bring him into a
Okay,
conversation.
give me the link for that, would you? I'm interested in that. So put the link on the chat and I'll copy it.
Yeah, he would be a great guy to, he's kind of interested in these concepts and first principles and stuff too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just. Cool, thank you. Yeah. So I think,
Well, he
see,
was talking about, because it's common to use verb vectoring as a verb, right? But it's arguing no.
I think these are articles that gets Dave curious. How's that?
Oh, he'd love something like this. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he would, because vector theory of change, he would love to use
Yeah.
articles.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
here it is about strain, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
strain, how do things emerge all of a
Right.
sudden?
Yeah, cool. Now, are you getting on LinkedIn? Are you getting any emails or postings about my 2 sessions I'm going to do in change management? Have you seen those?
I saw it somewhere, yes. Where was that? I think.
Okay, well, I'm scratching my head because
posted it on LinkedIn. I would have seen it,
yeah, I didn't post it as much as this change management network, which uses something called mightynetworks.com, and LinkedIn did all this. And I'm kind of like, oh my God, I mean, it's like a bomb went off. Like, I don't know who got notices or whatever.
I don't think I got notices, but yeah.
Did you get an invite to sign up for my 2 sessions?
Through LinkedIn. Through LinkedIn?
I don't know. I'm like, did you get any emails in your email
What are they
from
called? Let me just have a
from
look.
me?
What are they called?
Just
They're called Muddy.
no, just go into. Do you get LinkedIn emails? First of all,
No.
you don't. Oh, go into
Oh,
me.
on LinkedIn. Go into LinkedIn.
Okay. Now,
I don't think I got. No, I didn't get any notice from you.
see. Okay. See, I don't know how. What do you get on your LinkedIn? I don't know. Because this
It would just be in the stream. Otherwise,
okay, go there.
this-
Yeah, go there and then go look under your notifications. for me. That would be useful. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, notifications. There you go. Now let's
When would
see.
it come up?
Let's see. Okay, you get Dave's. Okay, can you scroll down? Do you get anything from me at all? I don't know how it works. Let's see.
I usually would if you, because you're, you know, if you're posting anything.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if it got posted. I did not post anything. This change management network did the posting, and they're connected through link, and they use LinkedIn for marketing. So
Yeah, they went and grabbed contacts, or they looked up on
yes,
LinkedIn probably
well,
who your contacts were, and then
yes, because
yes.
I got this congratulations notice saying, okay, 436 people received your message. And I'm going, say what? But I don't know who those 436 people are. I've got well over 500 connections over time. And I don't know if it's on different levels, but if you click on my name and yours, do you see all my notifications? I don't know how LinkedIn honestly works sometimes. It confuses the hell out of me.
Well, if I'm looking in here,
Yeah. Just go under search me under, yeah, just click on my name. There I am. Click on there and
yes, we'll see if we, because I did see something about change, and so I saw your name, but where was it coming from?
All right.
That's your.
All right, this is going back. So if you see my not highlights, about, go down a bit. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Okay, sorry.
oh, you're back to yours. Okay.
Back to yours, yeah. Okay.
Let me just see. Right there, activity. Okay. No, okay, that one there, Carson Bush. That's the one because I'm doing Meet the Author. But okay. Okay, Hopner. See, I don't know. So there's that one. Okay. I don't know if you've got anything from Change Management Network. No. Oh, hang on. No.
I remember seeing something.
Okay, anything I'd like, you get. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Anything I like. All right.
But that, how long ago? That's a week ago, right?
Yeah. So keep going. I'm curious to see, because obviously, if you like something, I should get a notification from you, right?
Yeah.
But if I don't like anything, yeah, I like this. Okay.
Is this it? Organizational change
Yes,
model?
there it is. Okay, now, because Nancy sent this out and I like this. Okay, so click on that one there. Click on the view event. All right.
Oh, invite connections, which then gives them to access my connections if I do that.
I don't know what it does.
So,
But you
what
can
if I
see,
clicked on that would give them a gateway to my contacts.
but you see it's got 105, Hank, me, and 105 other attendees. I don't know who those are. So
No, because that's coming from her network. So they would have sent that out to initial group, and then they're trying to tag into everybody else's contacts. So
yeah,
if I said, invite connections, that means I'm opening my gateway up to let them do that.
so if you click invite connections, that's your connections.
Yes.
Right.
So some people might have clicked on it, right? Or I know with those LinkedIn, because that Josh Turner who runs that LinkedIn selling, he was in the mastermind group.
Okay.
And, so they do that.
Okay.
Where you might pay for a core list of 100 or 200, and then they have strategies like this to actually try to incubate and generate more. Their system, but I think that goes into the LinkedIn system.
Yeah.
Become
Yeah.
You know, your contacts then become tagged as interested in organizational
Yeah.
change, and then LinkedIn can use that as well. So
That's
there's a
how
trade-off.
that's how the
Yeah.
sponsors for this virtual conference, that's what they've done. So if you were just to click on the event itself, does that bring you to the event? Yeah, go up a little higher, right there. Yeah.
So that's,
Where's it?
no, because I already signed registration.
Oh, did you, are you registered?
Yeah.
Oh, did you sign up for this?
Oh, wait a minute, I thought I did
I don't know if you did it. Honestly, I haven't checked because you've got.
Attending, yes, I am. I'm signed
Oh,
up
you're
here.
attending. I'm sorry. There you go. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
okay.
105, wow, that's fantastic.
Well, I don't.
Well, you don't know, maybe, like.
Well, the funny thing is that I get another screen and it shows how many people I think the invitation went to and how many people actually RSVP'd yes, no, and maybe. Right, which is okay, which is fine. So it's giving me some monitoring information here. But
Yeah.
I have to go like, well, I honestly don't know though who all this invitation, because I don't want to do a duplicate and say, hey, Janice, would you like to sign up for this thing? And find out Janice goes like, wait a minute, Gary, I did sign up for this, like, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
I don't want to do something stupid because I'm confused. Good example of that.
Yeah, so, because you liked it, I saw it, right? And
Yeah.
so your contacts would have all have seen that, so you don't have to necessarily, promote it more, other than you get closer and you can say, yeah, and,
All right.
you can send it again. Yeah.
So
They'll be doing the same, probably. They're doing it.
there is one, but I went through the list there, and there's one person I've been doing some project management on. If you type under search, type in her name. Her name is Ivy Lewis, Ivy Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah, there she is. All right. So she and I have done a couple of small
Nice.
YouTube things. And
Oh, I saw her, you did an interview with her, didn't you?
that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing it for fun, just kind of help build her
Yeah.
business. Just, just like mucking around with you. I'm just helping her
Fantastic.
build her business. Funny thing is, I don't think she got an invitation to the change management conference. And I figured, like, for sure, I think she should have gone, but she has not.
Well, this didn't come as an invitation, formal invitation. It was just, I saw it said that you liked this, right?
Yeah, but she never, I don't know if she, does that mean that therefore she would have seen? It's like you? And she
Yeah,
just,
she probably saw it, but maybe she was busy or something. You could always revisit it with your contact list and
oh,
and go get closer. You say, hey, if you haven't signed up for this,
she is
drop her email.
she is another person that really knows how to market herself, but she doesn't just market on LinkedIn. She does Facebook, she does YouTube, she does Twitter, she does the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, Ivy, I'm happy to do a YouTube with you here. I'll let you do the marketing stuff here because I'm in the confused of the there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do anything messy.
I'm not, like I say, I have some concern about like Facebook and things, but all of them are
So
getting in on it. LinkedIn, I was actually getting in on the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So there's my last. So do you know if you were working in a complex or order system? See that
Yes.
activity there? Click on that. And we just did a 3-minute promo for a bigger webinar. There we are.
Yeah.
Right. So she did all that. I don't do any of this at all.
Well, yeah, that's easy to do. Yes, very easy to do.
Yeah. I
Upload.
mean, yeah. So right now she is just collecting interest. I mean, like, send her an email, comment here, whatever. And I just say, at the end of January, is there enough people interested? We'll do one. If not, we'll move on.
Yeah.
So I did not like this because I always feel funny about liking my own things, but it sounds like we're learning if I like it, then at least you will see this.
Yeah. But rather than liking it, it's good if you're just do a share and just make it a little personal to your
Yeah,
contacts, right?
yeah.
So you hit share,
yeah.
share, and then just say, hey, if anybody's interested, I'm doing
Right,
this and
right.
welcome to join in.
That's more personal. Yeah,
Yeah, so just do an open invitation, because otherwise you're right, it feels weird that you're liking it,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Quite often I'll do a like, but I don't want to comment. Maybe something that's over here and someone else's safety. Right?
Sometimes, I know. It's also, am I blowing my horn? Like, if I think, I know, you need to blow your horn. We want to look at how many people will sign up. Yes.
Yeah. Well, in this case here, if I'm going to blow my horn, I'm better off to share and add a little comment. Yeah, looking forward to you joining Ivy and me, something like that. Okay.
And you can share, Ivy's doing some really great work, and I'm exploring this with her. So you kind of give that back to her as well. As you.
Okay. That's good to know.
Becomes the life, right?
Okay. I'm learning to get better at this. So
am I. My goodness, I'm in Facebook. I'm learning how to deliver things a whole lot better, because my presentation skills aren't that great. So I met this wonderful woman. She's an expert in actually delivering and training, and she's got it's Learn and Get Smarter. Wow, what a creative woman. Yeah. And it's interesting, her background is coming, and she's an expert in not only the teaching principles, but also the online aspects and how you actually engage people in an online environment, especially if you're doing these hybrid courses that are some of it self-guided. A lot of groups don't even think about that. I mean, I haven't done the Connectin one. I'd like to redo those. I have never seen their online versions of the Connectin or SenseMaker.
So you're talking their virtual base camp training now?
Yeah,
it's been rebranded to base. We're now calling it base camp.
Base camp. Okay. Yeah, it's funny because her stuff is Course Crafters Camp. So we're using camp metaphors.
Yeah.
But wow, what a phenomenal group that is in terms of.
Okay. Well, wow, it's been on 2.5 hours. Amazing how time flies.
I know. You give me lots of stuff. Save this recording? Can I access it, or is that
I have? I automatically just put it on record. So let me do this to you. I will record. I will. What I'm doing, so I have to send you like a 1 gigabyte file. I just quickly. I publish it as an unlisted YouTube, because then I can use the YouTube, right? Then I just send you the link, right? So
absolutely,
you and me.
Yeah.
Let me do that, and I think we captured a lot of interesting stuff. You may want to go back, look at it. Yeah. Okay, let's do that.
And as far as responding to Dave, what do you think is the best way to respond to him? Should I just do a short little video myself of some ideas and share that paper, or
did you put it on the Hunt?
No.
Okay. You should move this into the Hunt. Just put a new topic up.
Yeah.
Put in Hunt and just say, referring to Dave's blog, right?
Yeah.
Do that. And then if you wanted to post a paper, you can do that there. You can, you can then use all the short keys, like, do @Dave, and Dave will get that notification.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can't, Dave, I don't think really goes back to blogs that often. He'll immediately respond until his next blog, but he doesn't go back. He doesn't check, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
But if you do it on the Hunt, then gives other people to get involved, like myself, right, on that.
Yeah, and that's important for.
I could come out and say, hey, Janice, I had a little cool Zoom talk, and we we talk about how does somebody move from confused to aphoretic, right? And then yeah. So, and then once it's online, it's always there as well. So you can always come back to it, right? Because blogs have a
That's
tendency
right.
to move on. I would do that.
Very good. That makes sense. Thanks. Hey, so what you doing for Christmas? Who's your
Oh,
pod?
oh, it's virtual. It'll be the family. I mean, the family can't, we're in Victoria, really can't come over, non-essential travel, right? So,
Right.
and so we were thinking, like, should we do one with my son that's here and my, of course, and my granddaughter, you know, and Scott's partner. But it's kind of like, you know, if we're really supposed to observe the rules, probably not. So
Yeah, right.
I think we'll probably end up doing some sort of a big Zoom fam jam. We've been doing those. Where I'll just get
Yeah.
on the jam and a whole bunch of us here as well. We could do that.
Yes.
I need to scratch my head because my tradition has always been to have a Happy New Year photo, which I send out, you know, of the family,
Oh,
right? But
yes.
I may have to do that, but it's going to have to be a screenshot of
And
a
with
Zoom,
virtual hugs, people are doing this, mention of their names.
whatever. Exactly. Yes. Something like that. And
I
send that one
know.
out on New Year's Eve. So
Yeah.
how about
I
yourself?
know it's different for sure. Yeah, well, I'll be with my father, my mom, and my sister. Like they're both being compromised and you know chronic
So,
disease. So the three of us are staying pretty close, right? Like when I'm in Vancouver, I'm not mixing with other people. I'm just doing my own thing, and I'll go out and walk and everything like that, no problem. But then on weekends, my sister drives in to pick me up, and I go out there Friday, and then I help my mom do shopping and different things,
well, that's your tight
and
bubble. Yeah,
social, right? And then we have that social. So that
that's
is our
good.
pod, and so
Yeah,
I'm
that's good.
committed to that.
Right.
So.
So are you at your mom's place now, or are you at your sister's
No,
place?
no, I'm in Kitsilano right now. So yeah,
Okay,
during the week. Yeah.
I
Still
see.
have holidays. Yeah. The
Uh,
dog as well.
Your sister's doing well. I mean, she's okay, and
Yeah, she's doing well. Well, she's got rheumatoid arthritis, so she's pretty careful about things. So
okay. But she's working remotely as well, or she just?
she is, because she
Oh,
works for the federal government, so
right.
they're definitely following that. They don't even know if they're going to return to an office, right? That's all up
Yeah.
in the air.
Okay.
But her work hasn't been interrupted at all.
Oh, good for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. None of my three kids, they're all working full bore from home. Although Scott, he spends one day a week going into the Coast Appliances main office just to hobnob with the customer reps that are there on the floor. You know,
Oh yeah,
that's about it, but nothing more than that.
yeah.
But he does
Exactly.
predominantly most of his work from this office
It's
at
pretty
home.
interesting.
Yeah.
I did work for elections BC. I
Oh
was
yeah.
got a job as a trainer out in White Rock there. It
Okay.
was really fantastic because I trained like over 300 people in like
Wow.
a
Good for you.
short period of time. And it was different, right? Because you're training, it's not election, everything crashes together really quickly. So talk about like, but you know, it's interesting because they have great people. I got to be in the office and see more of the process all the way through. I got about 6 weeks of work out of it. And they
Cool.
were like 60-hour weeks, right? So they're
Wow.
pretty heavy. But fun. Oh my God, that was great. And then, like I say, all the training had to be adjusted to COVID protocols. So then I'm training people they have to unlearn and relearn. So, and we have a mix of newbies as well.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
good.
it's pretty interesting time. Yeah. And yeah, so I loved it. Yeah. It's good. And it was interesting fun because the guy I was working for, he's done elections for years. He started, I think, the innovation program at BCIT in entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay.
So he's used to being adaptive, right, about things. So it was really fun. He had a lot, I sat down with him after. He had a lot of good tips for me for, where to get in for work into places, leveraging different parts of the system and trying to find things. Really, really sharp guy. So, yeah, anyways, it's kind of fun to meet him. Yeah. Well, everybody else was really great. So.
Oh, good. Okay, nice to hear about that. All right, I'll let you go, and like I said, I'll let you know when I got this thing published. Then yeah.
Hey, thanks, Gary. I always get
Well,
great feedback from you on things to think about. And
well, it was
I'll give
mutual.
you questions.
Yeah, it was
Great.
good too. Enjoyed this.
All
Always.
All
Okay,
right, thank
you take
you.
care. Yeah,
Happy
bye.
holidays.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.